This is a video illustrating my 8th and 9th solos in 998 Sierra Charlie at York Airport, KTHV. I've set up a couple graphical illustrations to help visualize the hand position of the control stick during the landing and cruise, as well as a arrow or indicator pointing towards the pitch attitude level inclinometer that I've installed over there to the left to indicate the relative pitch of the plane during cruise and landing and takeoff, for that matter. Basically, what I wanted to accomplish during these flights was to test my ability to recover from mistakes and what corrective action I would take to test my reflexes and my instincts, and to see if I can improve my landings and understand some of the things that I'm doing that are not exactly correct that lead to some of these mistakes. So you're going to see me recover from a bounce here on this number 8 solo landing, and then on number 9 you're going to see me come in onto final about 100 to 150 feet too high. I'm going to have to slip the plane down and bring it down at a high rate of descent, and you'll see how I did that, and basically I'll provide a discussion of whether you slip into the wind or against the wind or opposite the wind. So here goes. It's a nice cool day, 45 degrees Fahrenheit more or less. I tested my engine preheating system. It worked great. So basically trying to improve my skills and enjoy a nice day flying in my sport cup. So here we're turning final on runway 17 with a right crosswind, slightly from the southwest. Pretty much almost perfect altitude at this point, crossing more or less about 800 MSL, which is about 300 feet above the surface as I pass that group of trees there and approach the runway. We're just about ready to cross over Route 30 and the last wall of the airport. Come there and cross over at about 150 feet above that, aiming pretty much right for the threshold and the numbers, coming down at a almost perfect trajectory. Aligned very well on the center line. I'm going to make a correction a little bit to the left, eliminate the crab, but I make two mistakes here. You'll see they lead to a bounce. And I recovered from the bounce pretty well. You'll see I could do better next time. I took a little longer than I would have liked to remove the carb heat, but my instincts in terms of the addition of power immediately was good, and you can see me removing the flaps on a gradual basis to maintain speed and altitude as I climb out for my go-around. Let's repeat that and watch the exact mistakes that I made during the last few feet of descent. So I am arresting my descent rate, which is pretty good. I'm descending at almost 3 to 4 feet per minute or second, which is good. And then I pull the stick back and I apply power almost at the exact moment that I touch down on the runway. And the reason for that is the plane slowed and I got the zero rate of descent a little early, so the plane slowed and I started to fall, and that's why I added power to try to soften that descent rate. When really I should have probably done is just first of all let the plane descend instead of adding power to begin with, and I would have come down at a more steady rate of descent, and I wouldn't have hit the runway quite as hard. Here we watch again. Watch carefully as I get about 15 feet off the runway, and I'll change the attitude by pulling back on the stick. You watch the attitude indicator. I'll straighten the plane out, pull back, and I give it a little bit of power just as I was about to touch the runway. So I was almost in takeoff attitude with power added and the stick back. no surprise that when I touched down, I took off, which is essentially what a bounce is. It's an attempt for the plane to take off again. So it happened so fast I didn't have a chance to push the stick forward fast enough to cut the lift. And that's pretty much a classic bounce and pretty good recovery in a go-around. So I feel confident that I'm going to do the right thing in that situation. That was too much of a bounce to try to recover from, and I was not aligned on the center line. And after the bounce, I was kind of aimed off to the left, and that's a classic situation you get in trouble when you're trying to recover and change your direction at the same time. So here we go. Flaps are removed, and we're climbing back out for another attempt for a decent landing. Now I'm going to make another mistake here, which is I'm going to be entering the final way too high, and I'm going to have to slip coming in. Generally speaking, you should slip into the wind, which is, since we had a right crosswind, I probably should have used right aileron and left rudder. It would have been a more classical approach, but I decided that I would use left aileron and right rudder so that the plane would be crabbed to the right, and that way I didn't have to change the direction of the nose so radically when I removed the slip. So essentially I maintained the right crab all the way down. The only difference was I didn't have as much left aileron in the plane. In fact, I had no left aileron when I was approaching the runway. So with a slight right crosswind, I should be applying a little bit of right aileron and left rudder to compensate for it. Right aileron to maintain the right-left direction and drift, and left aileron to maintain the direction of the nose of the plane. Because with the right aileron, you want to turn to the right, and the left rudder will compensate for that. The Sport Cub has such tremendous control. The stick doesn't move much, and the rudder doesn't need to move much to accomplish that purpose. So that's one of the other issues that I have with this plane, is I'm trying to get used to the fact that the controls are really, really sensitive, and that's a good thing, except that for a rookie, inexperienced pilot here in this particular plane, it requires a little bit of practice in getting used to, because I tend to over-control the plane. You also notice that Sport Cub with a Sensenig propeller seems to have a little bit of resonance at about 2,000 RPM. You notice that it was shaking a little bit there. So I'm going to avoid the 1900 to 2,000 RPM range, and that resonant frequency tends to shake things and may not be very good for the magnetos. So here you're turning final, and you'll notice that in the last approach, I was like 800 or 900 feet MSL, or about 300 to 400 feet maximum above the runway when I passed these trees to my right. In here, I'm well over 1,000 feet, so I'm at least 200 feet high. So I'm going to slip the plane. You can see the nose is pointed to the right, and I've got left aileron. Roll is minus 5, minus 4, minus 3. I'm slipping it pretty good. Probably minus 3, minus 4 for the. Right now I'm going to remove the aileron, maintain the crab, and now I'm going to try to straighten it out. So this is I'm going to do a little bit better job controlling the attitude. Watch the stick this time and the throttle. I'm going to keep the throttle out, maintained it. Now I'm going to cut it just as I approach the runway. So it was not so much that I didn't pull the stick back. I didn't pull it back as far, but mostly I had the power off just as I touched down, so the plane was no longer in a takeoff attitude. So I think I have to be very careful that I watch the combination of power and stick. If you have the stick back and the power on, you're basically in takeoff attitude, and you're going to probably bounce. If you can control the throttle and make sure your throttle is off just as you touch down, even if the stick is back a little bit, you probably will not bounce, and if you do, it won't be a very serious one. But the best solution is to maintain a constant rate of descent very low for the last 3 or 4 feet, and then push stick forward a little bit upon touchdown and be sure that the throttle is completely off just before touchdown. So what I have to work on is my visualization of the height of the plane so that I can get that timing to be more appropriate.